Fire in the sangre. The first gunshot didn't scare the horses, but the second one did. Nayeli Redbird ducked low behind the cracked stable wall, her heart punching against her ribs. The smell of gunpowder mixed with the iron temps of fear in her throat. Thunder rolled across the Sangre de Cristo mountains, but the noise outside the ranch house was no storm. It was her stepfather, drunk, armed, looking for her. Ramona's slurred shout echoed across the yard. "You think you can run from this? From me?" A bottle shattered somewhere inside the house. She could hear the wet slap of boots on tile. He was stumbling toward the front porch, cursing in Spanish and English, switching back and forth like a man possessed. She pressed herself flat against the adobe wall, clutching the leather satchel that held everything she owned, a flint striker, a silver bracelet that once belonged to her mother, a rag-wrapped roll of coins, and a rosary she hadn't dared pray with in 3 years. Tonight was supposed to be her escape, a night without a moon, a southbound wind, and an open trail toward Agua Violetas. She had waited 6 months for this, but Ramon had come home early and worse. He knew, somehow, he knew. She had heard the name earlier that day, Joaquin Herrera, the man her stepfather owed money to, the man who wanted something in return. "She's 16, maybe 17. She had overheard him saying, "but strong, works hard, bloodlines clean, mescalero mother, white father, she breeds just fine." Nayeli swallowed down bile. Herrera wasn't a rancher. He was a collector of women, weapons, and land. He took what wasn't his and buried what he didn't need. Her stepfather was offering her like livestock, no dowry, no wedding, just a trade sealed with blood and fear. Not tonight. She shoved open the stall door and approached the mare quietly. Windcaller snorted and shifted her weight, sensing the urgency in Nayeli's body. With practiced fingers, Nayeli secured the saddle, tied her satchel, and grabbed the bundle of jerky from the saddle horn. Her arms shook. She couldn't tell if it was from rage or terror, probably both. The porch light swung wildly behind her. Ramon was outside now, shotgun in hand, yelling at ghosts. "You think Herrera's gonna forgive me if I lose the girl? You think I don't know what happens to men who cross him?" He fired again, this time into the night sky. Windcaller flinched and let out a nervous whinny. Nayeli jumped into the saddle without grace, landing hard, her breath knocked from her lungs. There was no time for quiet now. She spurred the horse. Dust exploded beneath the hooves. Windcaller galloped toward the eastern ridge, her hooves cutting through cactus and loose shale. Nayeli didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. The Sangre de Cristo mountains looked soft and harmless from afar, like folds of silk draped in lavender and ash. But up close, they were teeth, harsh, brittle ridges that tore at skin and mind alike. Every step farther from the ranch made her feel freer, but also closer to some unknown fate. Windcaller began to slow after the second hour, panting heavy in the cool desert air. Nayeli reined her in by a cluster of junipers and slid off, nearly collapsing as her knees gave way. Blood trickled from a cut on her thigh where the saddle had rubbed raw. Her hands were blistered, her throat dusted dry. She dropped to her knees and let out a sound, half sob, half growls, somewhere between grief and fury. Her mother would have known what to do. Her mother, soft-spoken and iron, who had braided sweetgrass into her hair and whispered stories of rivers that ran backward and owls who warned of death. Ramon had broken her over time, slowly, like snapping dry branches one by one. And now, he was going to sell the last thing left of her. Nayeli wiped her face with the sleeve of her shirt, smearing dirt across her cheek. She could cry later, if she lived. She scanned the land ahead. Far in the distance, beneath the pale glow of dawn, a thin plume of smoke curled into the sky. A campfire. People. She didn't know if they were safe, but it was her only chance. The camp smelled like sweat, coffee, and horses. Cowboys were stirring, rolling up bedrolls and muttering to each other in groggy tones. Wagons creaked, tin pots clattered. She pulled her hat low, aware of every eye that turned her way. One of the men approached, tall, dark-haired, broad through the shoulders. His skin was sun-worn, his eyes unreadable, the color of canyon stone after a storm. "You look like you've been dragged by your own horse," he said plainly. Nayeli straightened in the saddle. "I'm not looking for charity. Didn't say you were." He looked her over. "Cuts on your arms say you need a doctor. Face says you haven't slept in days. Horse says she'd drop if she doesn't get water. I'm fine." "Liar." A silence stretched between them. He took off his hat and nodded politely. Name's Cole Blackhorse. I run this outfit, Nayeli Redbird. You riding with anyone? No, running from someone. She didn't answer. He nodded again. Like that was answer enough. We're heading north. Trail goes long. Ain't no place for anyone soft. But we got a dock, a cook, and space by the wagons, if you can earn your keep. She blinked. Why help me? Because someone once helped me, he said simply. Figure I'd pass it along. Nayeli didn't know if she could trust him, but his eyes didn't leer. His hands didn't twitch toward his belt. And when she finally dismounted and nearly crumpled to the ground, it was his arms that caught her strong, steady, without hesitation, that as he helped her toward the medical wagon, she whispered, "Thank you." He didn't answer right away, but as he pulled the flap aside and gestured her inside, he murmured, "Don't thank me yet." And then, just before the flap dropped, "You might have run from hell, Miss Redbird, but it's riding hard behind you." Cole Blackhorse had always trusted three things in life: the grit of his boots, the truth in a horse's eyes, and the silence of someone with nothing left to lose. That morning, all three stood in front of him: dust-caked boots, a wind-worn mare, and a girl whose silence echoed louder than any scream. Nayeli Redbird didn't speak much as Doc Sims stitched up the gash on her arm. She winced, teeth clenched, but made no sound. Cole watched from outside the wagon, arms crossed, a cigarette burning low between his fingers. A dozen cowhands bustled about the camp, roping supplies, checking tack, stoking the fire under Cookie's skillet, but their eyes kept drifting to the girl in the wagon. "She yours?" one of them asked, hitching a brow. "Nope," Cole replied, flicking ash into the dirt, "but she's under my roof now." That answer seemed to settle most of them. In Cole's outfit, when he said someone was under his roof, that was the end of the conversation. Inside the medical tent, Nayeli kept her eyes locked on the canvas above her. Doc was humming tunelessly while tying off the last stitch. Her arm burned, her muscles ached, and her heart beat too loud in her ears. But more than anything, she hated the feeling of being watched, measured, judged, catalogued. "You're lucky," Doc said softly, wiping his hands. "That bullet was a warning shot. Man wanted to hit you. He would have." She said nothing. "Man like that's not gonna stop at warning shots." Still nothing. Doc sighed. "All right, girl. You're patched up. Trail boss says you ride with us, so you're one of us. That means rules. You work, you eat, you cause trouble, you ride out." Nayeli nodded once. She sat up slowly and stepped out of the wagon. Sunlight hit her eyes like a slap. For a moment, the noise of the camp overwhelmed her: shouting men, clinking spurs, a distant whinny. Her legs wobbled. Cole was there before she could fall. "Easy," he said, steadying her elbow. His hand was warm but firm, like the reins of a trusted horse. "You'll find your footing." She looked at him, confused by his kindness. "Why do you let me stay?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed her a beat-up canteen. "Drink." She drank. The water was lukewarm but tasted like salvation. When she finished, he finally spoke. "I don't turn away people bleeding at my door, not without asking why they're bleeding." "You didn't ask," she said, voice raw. His eyes flickered with something: respect maybe. "Didn't need to. I seen that look before. The kind that only comes from someone who ran out of choices." He gestured toward the mess line. "You hungry?" She hesitated, then nodded. They walked together past wagons and grazing horses. Cowboys watched them with curiosity, but no one said a word. Cole's presence was enough to keep their thoughts to themselves. Nayeli was keenly aware of the contrast: her ragged clothes, dirt-smeared skin, the stitched gash on her arm, and his quiet authority. The way he moved like the land belonged to him. Cookie, a grizzled old man with a scar running down his left cheek, squinted at her. "She any good with coffee?" "She's got 2 arms and a pulse," Cole replied. "Give her a chance." Cookie grunted. "Then she's already ahead of the last drifter." Nayeli stood straighter. "I can cook." Cookie tossed her a towel. "Then earn your spot, girl." Cole turned to go, but paused. "You'll find Cookie's bark is worse than his biscuits." Cookie scowled. "Ain't that the damn truth?" By mid-afternoon, Nayeli had washed more pans than she thought possible. Her arms ached. The heat had settled into her skin, but something about the routine grounded her. Her mind had been spinning for days, but Hiram on pots and beans and sour bread doshi could focus on the now. Maria Laz appeared around sunset. She was about Nayeli's age, maybe a little older, with dark eyes and a soft accent. She didn't say much at first, just handed Nayeli a clean cloth for her brow and offered a half smile. "They'll forget about you soon," Maria said, watching the men eat. "They always stare at new blood. Give it 3 days, you'll be part of the dust." "Are you his wife?" Nayeli asked, gesturing toward Cole. Maria blinked, then laughed a warm, melodic sound. "Me, Dios, no. I owe him my life, not my hand." "How so?" Maria's smile faded. "That's a story for another night." Nayeli nodded. They worked in silence after that, the sun bleeding red across the horizon, painting the world in rust and ash. The wind picked up, stirring the smell of cattle and sweat. Coyotes howled in the distance. Cole returned, just as the last embers dimmed. "You settle in." "I didn't come to settle," Nayeli said. He looked at her, then really looked. "No," he said. "You came to survive." She didn't answer. He didn't push. Instead, he handed her a rolled-up bedroll and pointed to the spot between the cook fire and the supply wagon. "Sleep light. We break at dawn." She took it, hands trembling only slightly now. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded. "You don't need to thank me yet." She watched him disappear into the shadows, his frame swallowed by the dark. Around her, the men laughed and played cards. Elias sharpened a knife by firelight. Maria hummed to herself, for the first time in weeks. Nayeli felt something unfamiliar in her chest. It wasn't peace, but it wasn't fear either. She lay down, staring at the stars, counting every breath until the wind lulled her toward sleep. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled again, and the fire cracked beside her. "I don't know who this man is, but I think he's the first person who's ever looked at me and seen a person, not a price." By the third morning, Nayeli moved through camp like she belonged. The cowhands no longer stared when she walked by with a pan of cornbread, or called her the girl like they had that first day. She had scrubbed, cooked, hauled water, and bandaged a bruised knee without being asked. Cookie still barked at her, but with less venom now, and when she sliced the onions thinner than he could manage with his arthritic hands, he grunted something like approval. She had found her rhythm in the quiet parts of the day, kneading dough before sunrise, listening to Maria hum old Spanish lullabies while they worked, watching the boys break camp with practiced hands. She hadn't spoken much to Cole since that first evening, and maybe that was safer for them both, but his presence never faded. She noticed him in the way the men stood straighter when he walked by, in the way Elias Thundercloud's eyes narrowed every time Cole lingered near her too long, and in the way she caught herself glancing at the trailhead, just to see if he'd returned yet. That morning, she carried a bucket to the spring behind the ridge. The path was narrow, hidden between boulders. Windcaller had been grazing nearby, her coat gleaming like tarnished silver in the light. Nayeli smiled as she passed the mare, feeling the ache in her shoulders as a familiar friend now. Halfway to the spring, she heard rustling behind her. When she turned, a shadow stepped from the brush. He was tall, angular, with a coat worn to threads and eyes that moved, like a man used to not being seen. "Didn't mean to scare you," he said flatly. "You didn't." Her hand tightened on the bucket handle. "Just passing through," he continued. "Heard there's a girl matching a certain description riding with a cattle outfit. Might have been seen near Arroyo Blanco. Any idea who that might be?" Her mouth dried. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "People ride a long way for money, miss, especially when the flyer says dead or alive." Nayeli didn't answer. Instead, she dropped the bucket and bolted. She ran faster than she ever had scraped. Knees be damned, until the edge of camp came into view. Elias saw her first, a look of alarm spreading across his face as she stumbled past him, breathless and pale. By the time Cole rode in from the far ridge, the story had already reached him. Someone was asking about a girl, someone with a bounty poster. Cole called a meeting that night, campfire low. Men gathered close. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "There's a price on her," he said, arms crossed, eyes scanning the firelit faces. "Someone wants her back bad enough to lie, bribe, and maybe kill." Some of the men murmured. "She stays with us," Cole continued. "She works, she eats, she rides north." Elias stepped forward. "You hiding something, boss?" "I'm protecting someone," Cole replied. "That's not the same." "No, it ain't, but I'll be damned if we sell a woman for silver." Nayeli stood at the edge of the circle, watching the exchange. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Elias turned toward her. "We deserve to know who's following us into the dark." Her hands shook, but she raised her voice anyway. "His name's Joaquin Herrera. He's not law. He's not family. He's the man my stepfather promised me to settle a debt. The camp went quiet. Nayeli looked each man in the eye. I didn't steal. I didn't kill. I just ran. No one moved. Then Cookie let out a snort. Well, hell, he said. She still makes a better biscuit than you, Freddy. Let her stay. Laughter cracked the tension like ice. But Elias didn't laugh. He watched her with something colder than suspicion, like he'd seen a piece of her before, and didn't like what it reminded him of. Later, as the camp settled into uneasy sleep, Nayeli sat beside Maria by the fire. You ever think, Nayeli whispered, how fast people become memories? Maria looked over, her face lit by flame. Not memories, ghosts. They follow us, some louder than others. You ever lose someone? Maria nodded slowly. Too many. Some I buried, some I still carry. Nayeli looked down at her hands, scarred, dry, too young and too old all at once. If they come back for me, she said, don't let Cole fight them alone. Maria didn't smile, didn't soothe her with pretty lies. I won't, she said. Just before Nayeli turned in for the night, she passed by Elias, sharpening a blade beneath the supply wagon. Don't think I trust you yet, he said without looking up. I'm not asking you to, she answered. His eyes flicked up. Just know this: if trouble comes, it ain't just your back you put at risk, it's ours too. She nodded once. I know. She kept walking. That night, sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it brought the same dream, her mother's voice calling from across a river she couldn't cross. And behind her, the sound of hooves pounding closer. In the dark, something new began to burn in her. Chest, not fear, but resolve. She wouldn't run again. She'd already made that choice the moment she'd looked Cole Black Horse in the eye and accepted his help. Even ghosts had to be faced. Eventually, I heard there's a girl matching a certain description, and some folks ride a long way for a reward. The wind was wrong that morning. Cole felt it in his bones before he saw anything. An old instinct honed on battlefields, canyon trails, and poker tables where lives got lost on bad reads. It came like a whisper along his spine. Something's coming. The herd was moving slow over rocky terrain, northbound past the Red Basin toward El Segundo. The air held that desert stillness, thick and too quiet. Men rode with their hats low, dust curling off hooves, the smell of cattle and leather heavy under the rising sun. Cole rode ahead, scanning the ridge. His thoughts kept drifting back to Nayeli, how her hands hadn't trembled when she spoke in front of the men, how she didn't cry when they heard her name was on a bounty flyer. He knew what it took to stand tall when your whole world wanted you buried. He respected it, and respect, for a man like Cole, was dangerous territory. Back at camp, Elias Thundercloud paced the perimeter with tight shoulders. He hadn't let go of the warning that crept in 3 days ago, and he wasn't ready to pretend they were in the clear. He had the flyer in his coat pocket, pulled it out again. Wanted girl, age 17 to 20, Mescalero features, known alias Red. Last seen fleeing Sangre de Cristo Valley. Reward, $500, dead or alive. He clenched his jaw. It wasn't just the price that got to him, it was the wording, the arrogance. Dead or alive, like she was livestock. He'd seen this before. He'd lost someone this way before. That afternoon, while the herd paused to rest in a dry arroyo, Elias found her tending to Cookie's splintered crates. You gonna tell me the rest of it? He asked. Nayeli looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. I already did. No, you gave the parts that make men feel sorry for you. I want the parts that make me trust you. Her gaze sharpened. I don't need your trust. He stepped closer. You're riding with 50 men who'd spill blood for Cole. If something happens to him because you brought hell to our heels, there's not a soul here who'll forgive you. Not even Maria. Nayeli swallowed hard. She stood slowly, eyes level with his. He knew the risk when he let me stay, and now the rest of us carry it. Her hand went to her belt, not for a weapon, but for steadiness. If they come, I won't hide behind him. Elias studied her, then nodded once. That's something. They didn't speak again for the rest of the day. That evening, the sky burned orange as camp settled in a grove of wind-warped pines. The men gathered round a small fire, passing tin cups and stories. Cole sat on an overturned crate, oiling his saddle. When Maria slipped into the shadows beside him, she's different now, Maria said. Maria nodded, like someone waiting to pay for something. Cole didn't answer. He kept working the cloth into the leather. She's got the same look you used to have, Maria added, when you were waiting to die. He paused, just for a breath, then resumed the motions. I didn't die. No, she said softly. You let someone in. That's why you lived. His eyes lifted toward the tent where Nayeli slept. The next morning, Cole found her sitting alone, back against a wagon wheel, sharpening a kitchen knife. Never know when I'll need it, she said without looking up. You expecting company? Always. He crouched beside her, pulled the flask from his coat, offered it. She shook her head. If I start drinking now, I might not stop. He took a slow swig and tucked it away. You made a choice that day, he said. The night you ran, she nodded. Running was the easy part. Surviving's harder. Her voice was quiet. What comes after surviving? Living. She looked at him then, for the first time, really looked like she was trying to memorize his face before it disappeared. I've never had that, she said. A life that was mine. He nodded. You could. Silence hung between them, thick and tentative. Why me? She asked. Why help? He didn't flinch. Because someone once found me in worse shape and didn't ask what I was running from. And you owe it forward. No, he said. I believe in people who've been through fire. They're the ones who know how to rebuild. Before she could reply, a shot rang out. Not close but not far enough either. Camp burst into motion. Cole was already on his feet, rifle drawn. Elias, he barked. Northridge. Elias called back, mounting his horse with practiced speed. I saw movement just before the shot. Cole turned to Naya. Stay behind the wagons. No, not a request. I've been hiding my whole life, she said, standing tall. If this is the fight, I want to see it coming. He hesitated, then nodded. Men fanned out across the ridge. The shot had come from a distance, a warning more than a strike. But the message was clear. They were being followed, watched, tested. Cole returned by dusk, with Elias and 2 other riders. No blood, no bodies, just hoofprints headed back toward the southern ravine. This was a game, Elias muttered. A way to see how we'd respond. Cole glanced toward Nayeli, who stood stiff near the fire, fingers curled tight. They're not playing anymore, he said. That night, the camp felt smaller, the shadows thicker, the fire burned low, and every snap of twig felt like a fuse. Nayeli didn't sleep. She lay staring at the stars, wondering which direction death would come from, whether she'd greet it standing. You're not just running anymore, Cole had said, and he was right. She was preparing. He's not tracking you now, he's hunting you. The wind carried the scent of rain as they neared El Sagredo. The town rose like a bruise against the desert-faded wood, scorched stone, and the silent judgment of broken windows. It was a place that didn't ask questions and didn't care for answers. Half outlaw trading post, half ghost town. El Sagredo sat crooked beneath a dry sky that always threatened more than it gave. Cole rode ahead, hat low, jaw locked. Behind him, the herd pushed slow through the dust. He had sent Elias and 2 hands to scout the perimeter, while the rest of the crew remained half alert, rifles close. Words, few. At the center of town stood a squat adobe chapel, its bell cracked, door sun-bleached. That's where they'd go. That's where he'd marry her. He hadn't planned to ask, not yet. But after that rifle shot yesterday and the fresh tracks circling the camp, Cole had made peace with one truth. If he wanted to protect her, truly protect her, words and weapons weren't enough. The law had to be on their side. And in the territory, a marriage certificate was as good as a badge. He dismounted and approached Nayeli, who stood beneath the shade of the supply wagon, arms crossed tight against her chest. Her hair was pinned back, face streaked with dust, but her eyes, they were defiant and unreadable. He respected that, but today, he needed more than her respect. He needed her trust. He said, I could choose. She said, not waiting for him to speak. You still can, he answered. I'm not forcing this. I never will. Nayeli looked away, jaw clenched. I'm offering you a way to disappear in plain sight, Cole said. If you're my wife, legally, Herrera can't touch you. Neither can your stepfather. They'd have to drag you through a court full of strangers, and I'll be right there if they try. She swallowed hard. And if I say no, then we keep running, he said simply. But they'll keep hunting, and next time, that bullet won't be a warning. Nayeli was quiet for a long beat. The air buzzed with heat and the scent of horses. Finally, she said, you don't get anything out of this. No, he agreed, except knowing I didn't let the world break someone who didn't deserve it. She looked at him then, truly looked, and for the first time, she saw something beneath all that grit and stillness, something wounded. but unbending. "All right," she said. "Let's do it." They walked together through the crooked streets toward the chapel. Elias and Maria waited near the door. The old justice of the peace was already inside, Judge Menlo, half-deaf and cranky, but still recognized by the territory as binding under law. "Got 2 rings," Elias muttered, pulling them from his vest pocket. "One belonged to my mother. She'd spit in my eye if I let a good woman walk into a fight without some kind of shield." Nayeli looked down at the plain silver band. Her hands trembled as she took it. Inside, the air was cool and dim. The adobe walls held the echo of forgotten prayers. A cracked wooden cross hung crooked above the altar. They stood before it, side by side. Menlo read the vows in a voice that rattled like dry leaves. "Do you, Cole Blackhorse, take this woman under law and name, in full sight of witness and word?" "I do," Cole said, voice steady. "And do you, Nayeli Redbird, take this man under law and name, in full sight of witness and word?" Nayeli hesitated just long enough for her breath to catch. Then she said, "I do." They exchanged rings. The metal felt strange on her finger, cold, solid, real. "By the power given me by this dustiest territory," Menlo muttered, "I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride, or don't. Makes no difference to me." Cole didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and kissed her gently, not out of show, but out of respect. It lasted only a heartbeat, but when their lips parted, something in her chest shifted, like something buried had turned over. Reaching toward light, outside, Cookie waited with a bottle and 2 tin cups. "Ain't got no cake," he said, "but I got whiskey." "Close enough." Elias clapped Cole on the shoulder. Maria hugged Nayeli tight. "You got a name now," Maria whispered, "and a man who means it." They rode out of El Sagredo that evening, the setting sun throwing long shadows across the dry earth. The herd moved quiet, the cowboys subdued. Something unspoken had settled over the camp. Respect, maybe, or curiosity. That night, Cole moved her bedroll next to his beneath the wagon. He didn't say much, didn't touch her, just handed her a blanket, then sat beside the fire with his rifle across his lap. "You can still leave," he said without looking at her. "When this is over, when we reach Agua Pet, I'll make the annulment easy." Nayeli looked at the fire. The ring on her hand caught the light. "I know," she said softly. She lay down and watched the stars burn holes in the sky. When sleep came, it wasn't heavy or dark. It was quiet, like something was finally listening. We may have spoken the vows for protection, but why did his kiss feel like a promise? 3 days out of El Sagrado, the rain finally came. It didn't whisper like it did on the high ridges. It fell hard, slicing the earth into rivulets and soaking every thread of cloth. The herd grew restless, boots turned to mud, and the trail north twisted into nothing more than deep tracks and sliding hooves. Cole rode near the front, soaked through, his hat heavy with water. Every few minutes, he checked over his shoulder toward the wagons, toward Nayeli. She rode beside Maria now, wrapped in oilskin, eyes narrowed against the downpour. She didn't complain. She never did, but he saw the way she braced her shoulders. She was learning what it meant to endure. They'd hoped the storm would pass by dusk. It didn't, so they set camp near the broken edge of a sandstone bluff, where an old mining shack tilted like a forgotten tomb. The men worked quickly, pitching canvas, setting fires that hissed and spat from wet wood. Inside the shack, it was barely warmer, but dry. Cole claimed the far corner. Nayeli entered after removing her soaked coat, steam rising off her skin in the firelight. She didn't look at him. She hadn't looked at him much since El Sagredo. Maybe it was the kiss. Maybe it was what came after the silence of 2 people tied by law, but still strangers to the soul. Cole didn't press. He never did. Instead, he sat and began cleaning his revolver. The click of metal on cloth filled the space between them. Then, "You regret it?" The question was soft, hers. He looked up. "What part?" "Marrying me." He met her eyes. "No." She sat across from him, legs tucked beneath her. "It's just everything changed after. Not just for me. For you too." "I don't live in the past," he said, "and I sure as hell don't regret the parts that might give you a future." Silence settled again. Outside, thunder rolled. Then the door creaked. Elias entered, soaked to the bone, dragging a man behind him. Cole stood instantly, hand to his holster. "Found him tailing us," Elias said. Shoving the stranger forward, he collapsed to his knees, young, pale, shaking. His coat was torn, his boots, city-made, "Name's Brantley," he sputtered. "I ain't no bounty hunter, I swear. I was just—" Cole stepped forward, gun still at his side. "Just what?" Brantley swallowed. "Following orders. Herrera sent me." Naili froze. He knew she'd head north. Brantley stammered. "Said if I got close, sent a telegram from the next town. Said he'd take it from there." "Where is he now?" Cole asked. "Couple days behind. Maybe less. He's got 6 men, real guns, real money." Cole's jaw worked. "Why follow us alone?" Brantley looked at Nayeli. "Said if she was still soft, she'd come back willingly." Nayeli laughed sharp, bitter. "Then he doesn't know me at all." Cole crouched eye level with Brantley. "You say one word, send one message, I'll bury you in the rock so deep buzzards won't smell you." "I believe you," Brantley said quickly. "Good." Elias pulled him upright. "I'll keep him tied for the night." When they were alone again, Nayeli leaned against the shack wall, arms crossed. "He's close." "Yeah, what do we do?" "We keep moving," Cole said. "We make it to Agua Pedra. Once we're in the township, we've got law. Sheriff Cantu's no friend of Herrera." She nodded, slowly. "And if he catches us before then?" Cole didn't blink. "Then we finish this on our terms." Later that night, she stood beside him as he checked his horse's tack beneath a canopy of pine and rain. The moon slipped between clouds, casting shadows long and sharp. "You ever think about what it costs?" she asked suddenly. "What? Doing the right thing? Saving someone who didn't ask?" Cole exhaled slowly. "Every damn day." She looked up at him. "Then why do it?" He glanced at her ring still on her finger, still shining faint beneath the moon. "Because someone once looked at me the same way you're looking at me now, and I owed it more than silence." She didn't answer, didn't need to. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder, the storm muting everything but their breathing. In the early hours, Brantley's voice broke the quiet. "He's not 2 days behind," he whispered, straining against his bonds. "He's closer than you think. He's already here." Cole's head snapped up. "What did you say?" "I saw one of his scouts," Brantley choked out. "They're waiting, watching. You're walking right into him." Cole turned to Nayeli, voice like steel drawn from its sheath. "It's not a chase anymore, it's an ambush." The fire burned low, barely a flicker against the cold morning gray. Cole stood with his back to it, scanning the trees. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the forest still wept from the branches. Every sound was magnified, drips, snaps, shifting hoof sand. Every shadow looked like a rifle barrel. They were being hunted, no more doubt. He had believed they had time, enough to stay ahead, enough to reach Agua Pedra's safe border. But Brantley's trembling voice had shattered that illusion. "They're already here." Cole tightened the strap on his saddlebag, jaw clenched behind him. Elias muttered curses under his breath, while tying Brantley back to the post. "Slimy little bastard," he spat. "Shoulda left him for the buzzards." "He gave us time," Cole said. "That's more than most, or he's just bait." Nayeli stood nearby, rifle slung awkwardly over her shoulder. She hadn't spoken much since the confession, but her silence was no longer fear, it was calculation. She was thinking like someone who expected to bleed before the sun set. Cole walked to her slowly. "You remember how to shoot?" She nodded once. "Better when I'm scared." "That's good," he said, "because we're gonna need every shot to count." Maria approached with a map, half-rolled and smudged with water. She unwrapped it on the crate by the fire. "We're here northern slope of Red Ridge," she said, pointing. "Agua Pedra's still 2 days out, but there's a narrow pass if we head east. It'll shave off almost a day." Cole studied it. How narrow, single file in some places, rocky, unstable, but it's hidden. Elias leaned in. "That might work. If we move quiet." Nayeli looked between them. "You think they'll follow?" Cole met her eyes. "They're not following, they're flanking." He stood, his voice cutting through the morning chill. "We break camp in 20. Leave the herd, take essentials, keep light. We move fast and hard to the pass." "But the herd," one of the hands started. "They're cattle," Cole snapped. "We lose them, we lose money, we lose this trail, we lose lives." No one argued after that. Within the hour, they rode out. 6 wagons, 11 riders, 2 pack mules, and a married girl whose name had become a bounty. The ridge narrowed quickly. Trees turned to stone, the slope falling sharply away to the left. Wind howled between the cliffs, scattering dry leaves and warning prayers alike. Cole led the line. Nayeli rode behind him, then Maria, Elias, and the rest. They said little. Brantley, tied to the last wagon under Maria's supervision, whimpered every few miles. It wasn't until midday that they saw the first signs, thin dark rising from the opposite bluff. Too far for a campfire, too deliberate to be random. Elias motioned with 2 fingers. Signal. Cole nodded. They were being pushed, forced out by late afternoon. The trail twisted into a canyon wall. Sheer drop on one side, rock face on the other. Cole halted the group. "We'll move through the canyon," he said, "but we'll split first." Elias raised a brow. "You planning something?" Cole turned to Nick. "You ride with Maria and the others down the upper ridge. Take the hidden switchback. If they're watching, they'll follow the larger group. And you?" she asked. "I'll take the canyon with Elias and 2 riders. Small target. Keep low. If they bite, we'll know." Nayeli stepped forward. "That's a trap." "Yeah," he said, "but it's ours." Maria handed Nayeli the small revolver she kept in her boot. 2 shots left. Make M matter. The group split. The decoy riders entered the canyon like ghosts, cloaked by dust and dusk. Nayeli rode in silence with Maria's team. The ridge above was treacherous loose stone, winding paths, and switchbacks barely wide enough for the mules. Every twist felt like the last dot, then dash, gunfire, 3 shots. Then 2 more. Distant, canyon-level, Ilias, Nayeli, single quotes, his breath caught. Her knuckles whitened on the reins. Maria pulled up hard. "Stay low," she barked. "That's the signal." Nayeli dismounted before the mule had stopped. "I have to get to them." Cole gave an order. He also gave me a gun. She was already running, scrambling down the slope, sliding on loose gravel. Maria cursed and followed. Rifle raised dot from the ridge edge. Nayeli looked down into the canyon. Chaos. Dots swirled around gunfire and figures on horseback. Cole stood behind a boulder, firing methodically. One of the riders was down. Elias had taken cover farther back. 6 men circled Herrera's men, and their dismounting, slow and deliberate, was Herrera himself. Tall, white suit, now dust, a silver pistol in hand, and a snake's grin on his lips. "You've got what's mine," he called out. Cole didn't answer. "You can hand her over and live, or die holding the wrong end of a good cause." Still silence. Then a voice from above, shaking. "She's not yours anymore." Herrera's head turned. Nayeli stood at the ridge edge, arms straight, revolver aimed. Every eye shifted. "You think you're stronger now?" Herrera called, almost laughing. "Because you put on a ring and played dress-up with a cowboy." Nayeli didn't move. "No, I'm stronger because I stopped believing you were God." She fired. The bullet caught Herrera's arm, spinning him back. He screamed, stumbled. That was enough. Cole charged, gun drawn. Elias fired from the left. Maria opened up from the ridge. The ambush turned. Herrera's men panicked. 2 fell. The rest scattered into the canyon, vanishing like shadows in smoke when the dust settled. Herrera lay moaning in the dirt, clutching his bleeding arm. Cole stood over him, revolver steady. "You kill me," Herrera spat. "You make me a martyr." "No," Cole said, voice low. "I make you a warning." He turned to Naya. "Your call." She stared down at the man who had stolen her childhood, who had branded her with fear, who had treated her life like property, and she said, "Let him crawl back and tell the world, I don't belong to anyone." Cole nodded once. They left him in the canyon dust, bleeding and broken. As the group regrouped and rode out toward Agua Pedra, Nayeli didn't speak. She didn't cry, but when she looked at Cole, there was something new in her eyes. Not gratitude, not safety, resolve. "I didn't just survive him, I ended him." The trail into Agua Pedra was steep and narrow, clinging to the edges of red cliffs like a thread barely stitched to cloth. Below, the canyons echoed the memory of gunfire, the scent of blood and dust still clinging to every breeze. But the riders pressed on, worn, silent, and alive. Cole rode ahead, his horse limping slightly from a cracked shoe. His eyes, though, were sharp and steady. Every turn they cleared without a shot was a silent victory. Every mile put between them and Herrera was earned through grit. Nayeli didn't look back. Her hands were steady on the reins. No trembling, no doubt. She had pulled the trigger, and something in her had shifted, something permanent. They reached the outskirts of Agua Pedra by dusk the next day. It wasn't much of a town, a mining settlement turned cattle post. It huddled along the edge of the river like a man nursing old regrets. A single church spire pierced the skyline, and 2 saloons faced each other across a muddy street, as if locked in a standoff of their own. But to them, it was sanctuary. The sheriff's office sat between the blacksmith and the livery, a simple plank building with a tin star nailed to the door and a bell that hadn't rung in years. Sheriff Cantu was outside, whittling at a hickory stick with a blade duller than his eyes. He squinted up at the group as they approached. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "Cole Blackhorse, dragging half a mountain behind you." Cole dismounted. "Need a place to put down roots?" "Just for a while." Cantu looked past him, nodding toward Nayeli. "She the reason trouble keeps finding you?" "No," Cole said flatly. "She's the reason I keep surviving it." Cantu grunted. "I got 2 cells. One's got rats, the other's got whiskey stains. Pick your poison." "We won't need the cells," Maria said, stepping forward. "We just need your law." Cantu eyed the group a moment longer, then nodded toward the town. "Then you best start acting like folks the law protects." They took rooms above the general store, thin walls, stiff beds, and windows that creaked in the wind. But the floor didn't tilt, and no one knocked in the night. That was enough. For the first time in weeks, Nayeli slept without her boots on. By morning, Cole was already gone, off talking to Cantu, working out land permits, protection notices, and cattle sale ledgers. Maria took over supplies. Elias played poker and listened for whispers. Nayeli walked. She wandered past the dry goods shop, past the chapel, through the morning market where townsfolk bartered eggs for fabric and gossip. No one stared. No one reached for her. No one knew her past, and none of them would dare claim it. At the edge of town stood an old barn, half collapsed, tucked behind a line of mesquite. She slipped inside, drawn by instinct more than purpose. Sunlight cut through the holes in the roof, dust dancing in the beams like tiny memories. She sat in the silence, the echo of hoofbeats still haunting her ears. Her body was still, but her mind churned. She had escaped Herrera. She had survived him, but she hadn't escaped the weight. That night, they gathered at the saloon, just the crew, tucked into a corner booth, with warm stew and cheap beer. Elias told stories. Maria laughed for the first time in days. Cookie even played his old harmonica, crooked and warbling. Cole sat beside Nayeli, shoulders brushing. "You did good," he said softly. "I did what I had to," she replied. "That's usually what good is." She glanced at him. "You really think we're safe here?" He paused, then nodded. "For now, but you don't trust that." "I trust you," he said. "And I trust the people sitting at this table. That's enough." She looked around at them. Elias, sharpening his knife without reason. Maria sipping her beer like it was a dare. Cookie tapping his boot to a silent beat. A ragtag family built from bullets and vows. "You ever think," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "that we only feel safe when we're running?" Cole didn't answer right away. Then, maybe, or maybe it just takes time to believe we deserve the stillness. Later that night, as the town settled into sleep and the wind hushed against the shutters, a lone rider crested the far ridge. His coat was black, his boots polished, his hat pulled low. He watched the lights of Agua Pedra from a distance. UNMOVING. Then he dismounted and crouched beside the scrub brush. Pulling a small spyglass from his saddlebag, he scanned the rooftops, paused, smiled, then whispered into the darkness. "Found you? Stillness is a lie when the storm already knows your name." The morning after brought with it a heat that clung to the town like wet cloth. Agua Pedra simmered under the sun, quiet and slow. But beneath the surface, something moved out, coiled. Unseen. Cole stood outside the sheriff's office, sleeves rolled, sweat dotting his collar. He'd been helping Cantu draft a legal deed for the cattle Maria planned to sell. Routine, small-town work, a luxury for men who lived with scars. He signed the final page, passed it to the sheriff, then turned toward the street and stopped. The black horse was tied outside the saloon. Not just any horse, a jet-colored stallion, lean and mean, with saddle detailing too fine for a drifter. Cole knew that kind of mount, knew what it meant. He crossed the street with the calm of a man whose nerves were steel. His boots echoed against the wooden boards as he stepped inside. The saloon was quiet. A piano tune fluttered somewhere in the back, slow and crooked. Only 3 men sat at the bar. 2 were locals. The third turned when Cole entered. "Afternoon," the man said. He smiled, like a man with secrets. Heard Agua Pedra had a sheriff, but nobody mentioned a hero. Cole didn't smile back. "You're riding Herrera's horse?" The man raised a brow. "Not anymore. He's dead." Cole's jaw tightened. "You kill him." "Watched him die," the man said, taking a slow drink. Left him where the buzzards eat proud men. Naeli stepped in behind Cole then, stilling as soon as she saw the stranger. He turned to her, and that grin came again. "You're prettier than the wanted poster," said. Cole's hand twitched near his holster. "I don't want trouble," the man said, raising one hand. "Name's Deacon Price, used to ride for Herrera, till he stopped paying and started bleeding." "What do you want?" Cole asked. Deacon set his glass down. "I want in." "On what?" "Whatever you're doing. Cattle, land, doesn't matter. You've got protection here. You've got smart hands, and you've got her." He nodded toward Naeli. "Which means you've got a story people will follow." "We're not building an army," Naeli said. Deacon laughed. "No, but war's coming anyway. That's what you're not seeing." Cole stepped closer. "What do you know?" Deacon's smile faded. "Herrera's brothers are organizing. Down in Las Cruces, they've got money. Men, you think they'll let what you did slide? You didn't just survive, you embarrassed them." Elias appeared in the doorway, saw the tension, and crossed fast. "We got a problem." "No," Cole said. "Not yet." Deacon tipped his hat. "You'll want me before this is over. I ride clean, I shoot straighter than most, and I don't scare easy." "We'll think about it," Elias said, already not liking him, as they turned to go. Deacon added, "Clock's ticking. Black horse." Outside, the sunlight felt hotter. Naeli exhaled slowly. "He's not lying." "No," Cole said, "but he's not clean either." "What do we do?" "We make a plan." By late afternoon, the crew gathered in the loft above the general store. Elias locked the door behind them. Cole laid out the map, a rough sketch of the region with circles, notes, and dotted lines. "Here's where Herrera fell," he said, tapping a canyon ridge. "Las Cruces is 2 days south. Deacon's right if his brothers are organizing. We don't have weeks, maybe not even days." "What are we protecting?" Maria asked. "Ourselves, or the town?" "Both," Cole said. "We've put down roots here. That means responsibility." Elias leaned back. "So we defend the ridge?" "No," Cole said. "We control the pass. They come up through the lowlands. If we hold the high ground, they'll never reach Agua Pedra." Naeli studied the map. "We'd need time to set traps. Cliffs, find cover." Cole nodded. "We'll scout it tomorrow." "And Deacon?" Maria asked. Cole looked out the window toward the saloon. "He's bait. If they're tracking him, we use it." That night, Deacon returned to the saloon, drank slow, played cards, watched the door. At midnight, a figure slid into the seat beside him. A girl, barely 20, dust on her dress, knife at her hip. "You're the one looking for trouble," she said. "I'm the one who already found it," Deacon replied, not looking up. She leaned closer. "I was told to watch you, to see where you sleep, to see if the girl's still with you." Deacon set his cards down. "And if I say yes, then they come." He looked at her for the first time, and smiled. "Tell them to bring more than 6 by sunrise." The spy was gone, and Deacon he stayed. Cole met him on the edge of town, rifle across his chest. "You give them our location." "I gave them a reason to think I did," Deacon said. "They'll ride in 3 days, maybe less." Cole didn't blink. "And you?" Deacon's voice was steady. "You need a bastard on your side." Naeli watched from the church steps, arms folded. She didn't trust Deacon, but she didn't trust the calm either, because calm was just the pause between the hammers, rise and the strike. War rides best when it's dressed in silence. Under the smoldering desert sky, the ridge looked like something carved from bone, high, narrow, treacherous. Cole stood atop it, boots planted firm on the edge, surveying the valley below. If Herrera's brothers came and this was where the line would be drawn. Behind him, the others were working fast. Maria and Elias unloaded crates of supplies, setting up makeshift barricades from timber and discarded metal. Cookie had rigged 3 trip lines with dynamite from the old mining shed. Not enough to stop a small army, but enough to stall them. Naeli rode up the trail, dust curling around her horse's hooves. She dismounted without a word and handed Cole a battered canteen. He took it, drank deep, then passed it back. "You still think they'll come through here?" she asked. "I don't think," Cole replied. "I know." She looked over the edge. "Looks like death. That's why they'll think it's safe," he said. "No one expects the fire to come from the rocks." Maria approached, wiping sweat from her brow. "If we're setting the trap, we better be damn sure it'll spring." Cole nodded toward Elias. "How's the range?" Elias crouched behind a ridge of stone, scope balanced on a mounted rifle. "Clear visibility to the south." 1 mile of dry brush before they can hit this rise. We'll see them long before they see us. And the fallback. Maria pointed to the saddle between 2 hills behind them. Safe route to Agua Pedra if we need to run. But we won't. Cole nodded. We hold this ground. That night, camp was quiet. No fire. No talking. Just the sound of the wind, scraping against stone and the occasional distant howl. Nayeli sat beside Cole, legs crossed, her hands wrapped around the old revolver Maria had given her back at the canyon. I keep thinking about the first night, she said softly. When I ran, Cole looked at her. I didn't think I'd make it past the first river. I kept hearing my father's voice in my head, telling me I'd die alone. You didn't, Cole said, and you're not. She looked up at the stars, which felt strangely close out here. Do you ever think about what happens after all this? Cole was silent a long time. Then, sometimes, but not tonight. Dawn broke like a gunshot. Elias was the first to spot the dust trail in the south. A long, low cloud rolling across the valley like a warning. They're coming, he called out. Everyone moved into position. Maria checked her rifle. Deacon mounted the old Gatling gun they'd rigged from the town's busted armory. Cookie lit the fuses, but didn't ignite. Cole stood at the highest point, hat low, rifle ready. Nayeli crouched behind a boulder, eyes narrowed, pulse steady. The riders came into view, 12 of them. Tight formation, black coats, red scarves tied around their arms. At the front rode a man with a curved saber across his back and silver rings on every finger. Luis Herrera, the eldest brother. The real threat. Cole exhaled slowly. Wait for it. The riders slowed as they neared the base of the ridge. Luis raised his hand. They stopped. He shouted, voice carrying across the rocks. I don't care about your town. I don't care about your land. All I want is the girl. Cole shouted back. You'll have to cross over hell to get her. Luis laughed. I've lived in hell. Cowboy, what makes you think I won't recognize the way? He lowered his hand. The riders charged. Now, Cole shouted. Elias opened fire. The first rider went down in a spray of dust and blood. Then the second. The dynamite lines snapped, erupting in smoke and fire. Horses scattered. Men screamed. Still they came. Deacon cranked the gat. Bullets screaming into the valley. Luis dismounted and moved up on foot, flanked by 2 of his lieutenants. Using boulders as cover, Maria ducked a shot that whizzed past her head and returned fire, dropping one of them. The fight narrowed. Up close now. Guns emptying fast. Cole jumped down from the ridge, wrestling one attacker hand to hand. Blood spattered the sand. Elias cursed, trying to reload while dodging gunfire. Then one scream cut through everything. Nayeli. She'd been pushed back from her position, cornered near a ledge. One of Luce's men lunged for her, blade raised, but she didn't flinch. She fired point blank. The man fell backward, lifeless. Then Liz was there, face twisted in rage, eyes locked on her. You? He snarled. Nayeli aimed again, but her gun clicked empty. Luis raised his saber and was tackled from the side. Cold that they rolled through dust and blood, fists flying, rage unleashed. Luis swung the saber, slicing Cole's arm. Cole punched back, teeth gritted, refusing to yield. Finally, he knocked the blade from Luce's grip and pinned him down. You ain't your brother. Cole spat. No, Luis hissed, grinning bloodily. I'm worse. Cole raised his revolver, but Nayeli's voice cut through. Wait. She approached slowly, breathing hard, eyes locked on Luis. I want him to hear it, she said. Luis looked up, smirking. I was never yours. Not your property. Not your prize. And I never will be. Then, softly, you've already lost. Cole pulled the trigger. Luis dropped. The ridge went still. Smoke curled upward into the rising sun. Elias limped toward them, blood running from a graze on his leg. Maria followed, clutching her side. They were all alive, barely. Nayel. I looked at Cole, then out over the valley. What now? Elias asked. Cole wiped blood from his brow. We bury the dead. We rebuild the ridge. Nayeli stood in the sunlight, dust and ash still clinging to her. But first, she said, we breathe like we earned it. Freedom doesn't begin when they fall, it begins when we stop running. Under the long shadow of dusk, the ridge was eerily quiet. Smoke still curled from the blast-scarred ground, coiling into the sky like spirits rising. The bodies had been gathered, the wounded tended. Maria sat under a twisted pine with a bandage tight around her ribs, her breath shallow but steady. Elias hobbled with a cane Cookie had carved from a busted rifle stock. Deacon cleaned his weapons with methodical care, silent for once, but it was Nayeli who stood tallest. She hadn't spoken since Luis Herrera fell. Not out of shock, out of purpose. She had seen violence before, tasted it on her tongue, felt it in the marrow of her spine, but this was the first time she'd stared down the devil and told him no, and lived to mean it. Cole found her at the edge of the ridge, gazing into the dying sun. "You all right?" he asked gently, but her voice came quiet. He would have kept coming, even from the grave. He carried his hate like a brand, and I carried the scar. "But it's over now," Cole said. She looked at him. "Is it?" They rode back to Agua Pedra with the night at their backs. No one cheered. No one lined the streets, but lanterns burned in the windows, and doors were unlocked. The town had held its breath during the fight. Now it exhaled. Sheriff Cantor met them at the livery, hat in hand. "Rumors already spreading," he said, "that you turned the ridge into fire, that you killed the Herrera devil with just a whisper." Cole didn't smile. "Let the stories do what they will." Cantu looked to Nia. "They'll want to name you something. Hero, outlaw, which I don't care," she said. "You will," the sheriff replied, "because names stick harder than bullets." They rested, for the first time in weeks. The crew slept without one eye open, but peace was a strange guest. It knocked, then lingered just beyond reach, hesitant to step inside. By morning, a letter arrived. A courier rode in from San Miguel, covered in dust and blood, barely conscious. He had been intercepted, beaten, but not killed. The message he carried was simple, delivered by hand, signed in ink smudged with urgency. Cole read it aloud. "To the Black Horse Gang, you made your move. Now the game changes. We know where you sleep. The last Herrera is coming, and she doesn't forgive." They stared at the paper in silence. Maria stood, slower than usual. "Another one," Cole nodded. "A sister, maybe. A cousin. Someone tied to the bloodline." Nayeli took the letter, fingers curling around it. "She wants revenge, not just for Luis, for their name." Elias cursed under his breath. "How many of these people do they breed?" Deacon grunted. "Too many, and they don't die easy." Cole tapped the letter once. "This isn't a warning, it's a map. She's telling us she's coming. We need to make the first move." They prepared again, but not like before. This time it wasn't just about defending. This time, they would strike first. Maria began gathering intel. Through a contact in Durango, she confirmed a name, Esperanza Herrera, youngest of the line, the smartest, the cruelest. "She's not a soldier," Maria explained. "She's a tactician. Where Luis fought with fire, she fights with poison." Deacon chimed in. "She doesn't ride with an army. She pays locals, turns friends into knives." Nayeli thought long on that. "It means," she said, "that anyone in Agua Pedra could already be hers." Trust began to fracture. Conversations turned short. Meals were taken with one eye on the door. Every knock sent fingers to HOLSTERS. Cole gathered the crew in the barn. "We leave in 2 days," he said. "We take the fight to her, to San Miguel." Elias asked, "That's suicide?" "No," Nayeli said. "It's survival." She stepped forward, voice clear. "She's using fear, making us question each other. That's how she wins. We won't give her the time." Cookie handed Cole a bundle wrapped in canvas. "The last of the good rounds," he said. "You used them smart." They spent the night packing maps, ammunition, rations. Nayeli returned to the ridge once more. Staring at the place where Luis had fallen, she knelt, picked up a single shell casing. Held it in her palm. This place had marked her, but it would not define her. Back in town, as the crew gathered for one final planning session, a shot rang out sharp and close. Then another. Screaming echoed down the alley behind the saloon. Cole and Nayeli rushed out, guns drawn. There, in the dust, lay a body, a young woman. No weapon in hand, just a message carved into her shoulder with a blade. "You were too slow." Nayeli's hands clenched, jaw locked. Cole bent over the body, eyes hard. "She's already here. This time, the bullet has a name and it's mine." The town of Agua Pedra no longer breathed softly. After the girl's body was found, silence fell like a storm cloud. Windows were shuttered even in daylight, and children were kept inside. Conversations dropped to whispers, and every glance carried the weight of suspicion. They'd been warned Esperanza Herrera wouldn't come with gunfire first, but with fear, and fear had arrived. Cole stood in the sheriff's office, staring at a hand-drawn map of the valley. The ink marks showed every route in and out of town. Red X's marked ambush sites, blue circles, safe zones. He drew another X just west of the ridge. "Someone's leaking our movements," he muttered. Elias sat nearby, sharpening a blade with hard, quick strokes. "We knew she'd get inside our walls." "She already has," Maria said, walking in with fresh bruises on her arm. "One of the stable boys disappeared last night. Took 2 of our horses. No one saw him leave." Deacon paced behind them. "We need to flush her out before she lights this place up from the inside." But it was Nayeli who spoke the clearest. "She doesn't want to burn Agua Pedra," she said, voice low. "She wants to break it by turning us into the enemy." She stood by the window, watching a man across the street lock his door after looking straight at her. "We're not protecting a town anymore. We're protecting the idea of one." Cole looked at her. "We still ride tonight. You sure about that?" "Yes," Nayeli said, "but we don't ride into her trap." They altered their plans. Elias rode out first, alone, to draw attention. He'd take the western route, let them follow. Deacon and Maria would double back, cutting through the dry creek bed, circling north. Cole and Nayeli would ride together, straight into San Miguel under the cover of dark, just the 2 of them. No banners, no sound. The sky that night was starless. Even the heavens had shut their eyes. They left without goodbyes. The wind carried only the hooves of their horses, and the breath they tried to keep steady. Cole didn't speak for miles. "Then, you don't have to do this." Nayeli looked straight ahead. "Yes, I do. You've already proven everything. This isn't about proving anything anymore. This is about finishing it." He glanced sideways at her. "You've changed, so have you." They crested a hill, and the lights of San Miguel blinked faintly in the distance, gold and flickering, like lies dressed in lanternlight. They rode to the edge of town, tied their horses behind a butcher's shed, and walked the rest of the way in. The plan was simple. Find Esperanza, confront her, end this. But nothing about her was simple. The town was quiet, unusually so. Even the saloons were half empty, their usual din replaced by murmured poker games and watchful glances. "She's here," Nayeli said. "How can you tell?" "I don't feel safe." Cole didn't argue. They split, moving through the narrow alleys and back streets of San Miguel, searching, listening, then a sound, barely a whisper. Cole turned just in time to see a flash of silver. A blade grazed his jacket as he dodged, twisting the attacker's wrist and slamming him to the ground. The man wore no insignia, no colors, just black clothes and a look of feverish loyalty. "Where is she?" Cole hissed, driving a knee into his chest. The man just grinned, blood between his teeth. "She's already closer than you think." A crack rang through the air gunfire from the east side. Nayeli. Cole ran. When he found her, she was crouched behind an overturned cart, gun drawn, chest heaving. "She's here," Nayeli said, bought from the shadows. A voice answered, smooth, measured, deadly. "You've done quite well." Nina Esperanza Herrera stepped from the darkness like a phantom cloaked in red, eyes glinting like obsidian. "You killed my brother with his own pride. Now I'll return the favor with yours." Nayeli stood, not shaking, not blinking. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Esperanza whispered. They circled one another, the air thick with something heavier than he'd. Perhaps Cole stepped forward, but 2 more men flanked Esperanza now, weapons aimed. "No closer," she warned. "I didn't come to beg," Nayeli said. "I came to end this." Esperanza tilted her head. "You still think it's about you?" She stepped closer, voice softening to a near caress. "You're just the spark. I'm the fire, and I will burn this world until it forgets you ever existed." Nayeli pulled her trigger. Click.mt.esperanza smiled. "You're always running out at the wrong moment." But then came another sound. Behind her, the cocking of a hammer. Cole. His revolver was steady. "She's not the only one who came ready." Esperanza didn't flinch. "Shoot me and 10 more will rise." "No," Nayeli said. "Shoot you, and the story ends, because there's no one left who believes in you." Esperanza's smile faltered, just a hair. Then she lunged, a blur of motion steel against steel. Fists, boots, grit. Nayeli caught her wrist mid-swing, slammed her elbow into her ribs, spun her into the wall. Esperanza tried to claw for a hidden knife, but Nayeli was faster now, stronger in the ways that mattered. This time, No one held her back. She grabbed Esperanza by the collar, drove her to the ground, and pinned her there, breathing hard. Alive, you don't get to write the ending, Nayeli said. Esperanza spat, defiant even in defeat. Then finish it. Nayeli stood, gun aimed, but she didn't pull the trigger. She turned to Cole. Let the law have her. She won't stay locked up, he said. Then we make sure she's not the one with the keys. Sirens sounded in the distance. San Miguel deputies finally responding. Nayel. I turned away. She had made her choice, but as they walked from the alley, hands still shaking, blood still fresher, whisper carried behind them, cold and cruel. This isn't the end. Nayeli didn't look back. The worst ghosts are the ones still breathing. 3 weeks passed. Esperanza. Herrera was locked in a steel cell beneath the courthouse in San Miguel. Guards rotated every 4 hours. Her food was tasted before being served. No visitors were allowed, not even attorneys. But Nayeli didn't sleep, because ghosts like Esperanza didn't die easy. They waited. The Black Horse crew had returned to Agua Pedra, but the celebration was quiet. The people had seen enough death, and victory didn't taste sweet when you had to bury parts of yourself with it. Cole kept busy reinforcing the outpost perimeter, overseeing patrol routes, ensuring their scouts stayed sharp. Deacon trained new volunteers, ex-farmhands, now learning how to reload under pressure. Maria had taken up a quiet watch over the valley, using her network to sniff out any whispers of a resurgence. But she waited for the crack in the silence, because every good storm has an aftershock, and it came at nightfall. A rider, slumped forward on his horse, arrived at the edge of town. Blood soaked his shirt. A message had been stitched crudely into his coat. Wrong cell, wrong sister. They brought him to the clinic, but he died before morning. That night, the sky turned red. San Miguel burned. The courthouse was gone, blown out from the inside. Metal, twisted like paper, bricks crumbled to dust. Half the jail was reduced to rubble. The other half, empty. Esperanza had vanished. Cole paced the sheriff's office, jaw clenched. How does a woman disappear from a guarded cell under constant watch? Maria tossed the bloody coat onto the table. She never left, because she was never there. Deacon frowned. Then who the hell did we lock up? Her cousin Nayeli said quietly. She switched before we ever got to her. Esperanza played us from the start. Elias slammed his fist into the wall. We've been watching the wrong ghost. Cole looked to Nayeli. She's coming back. Not for vengeance this time, for victory. Nayeli nodded. Then we don't wait for her to pick the battleground. They began preparations not for a skirmish, but for war. Nayeli stood atop the water tower that overlooked Agua Pedra. She watched the horizon and thought about her mother, long buried, and the whisper she used to say when the world felt too big. Don't let the night fool you. It only wins if you stop walking. The town worked fast, hands blistered from labor. Barricades were raised, supply caches hidden, messages sent to nearby settlements for Ado. They knew few would come. The Herreras had poisoned too many ears. Then came the messenger. This time, Esperanza sent no body, only a gift, wrapped in a silk cloth, left outside the saloon. A black stallion's bridle. Fresh blood still clung to the metal bit. It was Rico's Cookie's son. He'd ridden out days ago to scout the border. Cookie didn't cry. He just walked behind the saloon, loaded every round he had, and started building something out of barrels, wire, and quiet rage. Cole found Nayeli on the ridge that night. She won't stop, he said. No matter how many times we beat her, she believes it's destiny. Nayeli didn't respond for a long while. Then, destiny is just a lie we tell ourselves to avoid blame. She turned to him. I need to end this. Not with bullets, with finality. Cole's expression tightened. That means walking into the fire. I've walked through worse. He stepped closer. Then I walk with you. The next morning, they rode again, this time toward the Herrera stronghold south of the Sable River, where the family had once built their empire on silver and bone. Deacon, Maria, Elias, Cookie, they all rode to. Each one knew what it meant. This wasn't a mission, it was a reckoning. The ride was long, broken by silence and the howl of desert wind. Old graves dotted the hillsides, reminders that power never protected anyone from death, only delayed the meeting by sunset. They reached the canyon. Smoke rose in the distance, a camp guarded. They dismounted, approaching on foot. Bomberia whispered, 12 guards, maybe more inside. Cole checked his rifle. "We do this quiet." But as they moved in, something shifted in the wind. Nayeli froze. "Trap," she said. Too late. The canyon wall erupted gunfire and dynamite. They scattered, diving for cover. Bullets tore through the dust. From the ridge above, Esperanza's voice rang out, cold and triumphant. "You always bring too many hearts to a knife fight." She stood at the top, flanked by men and women dressed in black. "I gave you a chance, Neil. You could have stayed in your little town, played hero, but you chose war." Nayeli stood slowly, brushing blood from her forehead. "I didn't choose war. I chose to stop yours." Esperanza smiled. "Then let's finish it." Cole yelled, "Move." Another blast hit the ridge. The canyon filled with smoke and fire. The last thing Nayeli saw, before diving behind a rock, was Esperanza walking down the slope with the calm of a queen, reclaiming her throne. The world burned in sound and silence. Gunfire shattered the canyon. Smoke painted the rocks black. Screams echoed, sharp and quick, swallowed by the wind. Nayeli moved like memory through the chaos. Her boots skidded against the dust, her lungs ragged with heat and smoke. Around her, the Black Horse crew fought with grit, rage, and something stronger, resolve. Cole's voice barked orders somewhere behind her. Elias covering their left flank, Deacon dragging Maria out of a collapsing ledge, one hand bleeding, the other still gripping a revolver. But Nayeli didn't look back. She had one path, and it led straight to Esperanza. She spotted her through the haze, standing near the mouth of the canyon's cave system, a rifle slung across her back, two bodyguards at her side. Her red shawl fluttered like war paint in the wind. Nayeli broke into a sprint, heart pounding like hooves in her chest. A shot rang out, missed her by inches. Then another. This one grazed her arm. She stumbled but didn't fall. When she reached the clearing, one of Esperanza's guards lunged. Nayeli ducked, tackled him into the ground, slammed his head into rock once. Twice he didn't move again. The second came at her with a blade. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it back until bones cracked, then shoved him into the canyon wall. Now it was just her and Esperanza face to face. The woman turned slowly, calm as ever, brushing dust from her shoulder. "You don't learn, do you?" Esperanza said, voice like a coiled snake. "No," Nayeli said, "but I remember." They circled each other, the ground between them soaked in the blood of too many lives. "You killed Rico," Nayeli said. "You used your own family to die in your name." Esperanza shrugged. "Blood is currency." He knew what his life was worth, just like you'll know the price of yours. "I already paid it," Nayeli whispered. "The night you burned my father alive." Something flickered across Esperanza's eyes, something almost human. Regret, maybe, or just recognition. She raised her gun, but Nayeli was faster. One shot. Esperanza stumbled back. Two more shots, one to the shoulder, one to the leg. She dropped her rifle, crumpling to the dust like a fallen statue, still breathing, still whispering. "You think this stops the fire?" she gasped, blood pooling around her. "You can't kill what people believe in." "No," Nayeli said, kneeling beside her, "but I can show them what belief costs." Esperanza's eyes fluttered. "Do it, Nina. Be what they feared." Nayeli stared at her, this woman who had destroyed so much, twisted loyalty into poison, used grief like a blade. She raised her revolver, then paused and lowered it. "You don't get to decide who I become," she said. Cole reached her seconds later, breath heavy, gun still drawn. "Is she alive?" Nayeli said. "But the story ends with her behind bars, for real this time." Paramedics from San Miguel arrived hours later, called in by a smoke signal Elias had set off near the ridge. They took Esperanza away, shackled and silent. This time, there was no switch, no cousin, no deception. The war was over, but peace wasn't quiet. Back in Agua Pedra, rebuilding began not with hammers, but with forgiveness. People returned to the chapel. Children played again. Cookie reopened the stable, keeping Rico's saddle above the door. Deacon taught younger riders how to shoot straight and ride smarter. Maria ran a new patrol team of both women and men, equal, sharp, unflinching, and Cole. He stayed, not because he had to, but because something in him had changed. Agua Pedra wasn't a duty anymore. It was home. Nayeli stood often on the same ridge, overlooking the valley. She remembered every name, every wound, but she didn't carry them like weight. She carried them like roots. Elias joined her once, offering her an old silver coin. "From my father," he said, "for the one who ends the storm." She didn't take it. Instead, she held his hand, and they both watched the sunrise. That morning, the wind felt different, later. At the new town square, the people gathered to honor the fallen. A plaque stood carved with names and, beneath them, a single line: "The measure of justice is not how many you bury, but how many you lift." Nayeli read it in silence, and smiled. She didn't need vengeance anymore. She'd built something stronger. Legacy. As night fell, she and Cole sat on the porch outside the old sheriff's house, now hers. No words passed between them for a long while. Then he said, "You ever think about leaving?" "Sometimes," she replied. "But then I remember, I didn't stay because I had nowhere else to go. I stayed because I wanted to build the kind of place I never had growing up." "And did you?" She leaned her head back, listening to the soft sound of wind through cottonwood trees. "Not yet, but it's getting there." He took her hand, and the stars returned. Some fires burn everything, others light the way.